to share. Welcome everyone. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Yali Madad. I am Wafa Ali and I work as Assistant Manager with Aga Khan Education Board for Pakistan, and I will be your host for today. And we are delighted to present an interesting webinar on the topic Studying and Living in Australia and New Zealand. This is our 8th webinar of the Career Facilitation Series. Welcome everyone. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Yali Madad. I am Wafa Ali and I work as Assistant Manager with So without further ado, let me give you a few rules of this webinar, and then I will introduce our guest for today. So to let you know, this is being live streamed on YouTube, so you can share this with your friends, invite your family members who are exploring the options to go and explore Australia, New Zealand, live in those countries, maybe study there also. So some house rules. Please keep your mic muted at all times, your video muted at all times. We have done it for you. However, you can use your chat box effectively. So our expert guest will be answering most of the questions that are there in your mind right now. However, if they could not through the presentation, you may post your questions or your comments in the chat box. Please make sure that your questions are relevant to today's topic. Sometimes the questions, they're automatically answered, so make sure you're listening to what our expert guests have to say. Make sure that you know that this is a career digital portfolio outreach program, and through this series, we are trying to involve our community members. We are trying to spread awareness regarding careers and fields out there in these times. Bring professionals to talk to you and have interactive sessions with them. So one of the agenda is to learn from their experiences. I would like to begin introducing our first expert guest. We have Anish Lakhani. Hi Anish, how are you?
Very well, Wafa. Hello, everyone.
So little introduction about Anish. Anish is from Social Welfare Board portfolio for Australia and New Zealand Council, where he manages iCare team within social welfare portfolio, whose mandate is to support recent migrants and international students to study there and settle there. Professionally, Anish works full-time in information technology as an IT project manager for Medibank Private Limited. He is also a part-time property developer as he is passionate about construction industry. With education perspective, he has completed his master's in IT from University of Western Sydney, also completed his bachelor's. He had migrated to Australia as an international student in 2002. So he has all the experiences that you all are looking forward to. Next guest is our Nazim Bhimani. Nazim, can you say hi to our guest today?
Hi everyone,
So Nazim is in the Tertiary Education and Early Career Development Board member for Aga Khan Education Board for Australia and New Zealand. He works in medical research as a biostatistician for gastrointestinal department at Royal North Shore Hospital, Sydney, Australia. He's a lecturer in surgical education at University of Sydney. Nazim is undertaking a part-time PhD in medicine as well, all those who are looking for further studies. And he has completed his master's in biostatics, bachelor's of science, advanced science, with key program, mathematical science. So thank you, Nazim. Thank you, Anish, for taking time out, and the floor is yours.
Thanks very much for having us. I think we'll dive straight into the agenda for today, or just to give everyone a bit of an overview of what we're going to be going through. So we're just going to give a bit of a country profile, a little bit of information about Australia and New Zealand, and talk about living and settling into ANZ. So ANZ is short for Australia and New Zealand, and then talk about the qualification framework, how to go about preparing for your studies, talk a little bit about the cost of studying and living here, and about the money management and finances.
Nazim?
Yes.
Nazim, there is a slight echo in the background in your voice.
All right. I'm not sure why that would be the case. Is it still present?
We can see your screen. Everything is good.
Yep.
Just the voice, I think, is echoing.
Right.
Yeah, I hear that as well, Nazim.
Right. Okay. Just trying to work out why that would be the case.
Have you logged in from 2 devices?
No, it's the one device. How's that now? Any change?
No, same.
Still the same.
How is that now?
Yep, much better.
Much better.
Okay, fantastic. Shall I continue?
Yeah,
Is that
please
so?
carry on.
Fantastic. So yeah, I was just saying, we'll talk a little bit about the managing your finances and how to go about finding a job here in Australia and New Zealand. Talk a little bit about the admission requirements and the working rights as a student. And we'll have some students who are currently studying in Australia and New Zealand share a bit of their experience of what it's like to live and study here. And then we'll end it with some Q&A from the audience. So just a bit of a disclaimer. Information that Anish and I will provide in this webinar is just for general information purpose only, and it's meant to serve as a guide. So just note that we're not migration agents or education advisors. You should look to get professional advice when considering your individual circumstances. So just a key fact about Australia. Australia is a very multicultural country. There's so many different people from so many different backgrounds. Australia, I guess its roots come from the Indigenous Australian population. And I would say that Australia is very much rooted in its sports. It absolutely loves. There's a huge sporting culture here. You'll see in the Olympics, it's a country that loves to play in every and any single sport that it can. The capital of Australia is Canberra, and it hosts the largest or the most well-ranked university in Australia, which is Australian National University. Australia is mostly densely populated in the larger cities, and you'll see that as you go further into Australia, there is not that much of a population, but you'll see a lot of people travel around Australia because of its beautiful scenic sort of views that you'll get. Similarly, New Zealand, the capital of New Zealand is Wellington. They have 2 languages. One is English and the other one is Maori. They also very heavily into sports. The main sport is rugby union. New Zealand is often known as being a second Switzerland because of its beautiful scenery. And you see some of those images on the right-hand side, or in the middle of the screen, sorry, I should say. I'll pass it over to Anish.
Thank you, Nazim. Hello, everyone. So during this presentation, I'll be sharing some slides in terms of what you should be doing while you are there in Pakistan at the moment. So if you don't have a pen and paper, I think it would be good to note this some of the tips down. And I'm sure this is some of the things that you want to get out of the session as well. So let's talk about living in ANZ. So as you know, overall, ANZ region is quite exceptionally good. and very well rated by various researches, and it's also considered as one of the top 10 livable cities in the world. Obviously, when you're living in Australia or New Zealand, you want to know about the accommodation, buying groceries, public transport, childcare, private transport, and also other things like banks and stuff like that. So I'm going to cover those things here. So in terms of the accommodation, there are various options to live in Australia. Like you can rent the house or share the house. You can live in the hostel. You can have a campus accommodation, or you can have a room service. There's so many options. And most of the international students live in a shared accommodation to reduce the cost. And there are various different ways you can find houses here. There are various websites like realestate.com.au, domain.com.au, trademe.co.nz if you're going to be moving to New Zealand. So there are various websites like that where you can look for the rental houses. There are newspapers, real estate agencies, university notice boards. So there are so many ways. Yeah. One of the tip I would like to give you, and if you have got your pen and paper, please write this down. I would strongly suggest that you sort out your accommodation before you come to Australia or New Zealand, because it can get really stressful. Already you are coming from a very stressful flight journey, and if you don't have your accommodation sorted, that actually adds a lot of stress to your first time going to Australia or New Zealand. So please make sure that your accommodation is sorted. In terms of the public transport, there are a number of ways, a number of forms of public transport like buses, trains, trams, ferries. Big cities like Sydney and Melbourne and Auckland has got really good transport system and frequent transport system compared to the regional areas. In the big cities, you can buy like a public transport cards like Opal card for Sydney and Mikey card for Melbourne, and you can just keep topping the money up. So it's very high tech in that sense. There are also other ways like taxis and Ubers as well. In terms of the private transport, obviously you can decide to have your own car, which actually helps sometimes with your job prospects as well. Private vehicles can be purchased through the car dealers or online or newspaper or retail outlets. Valid driving license is required if you want to drive in Australia. So obviously when you are here initially as a visitor or temporary resident, sometimes you're allowed to use that for certain period of time, but then it actually, you have to get your Australian license as well. So please check the eligibility as the conditions of the driving license vary from state to state and territory to territory. Given Australia and New Zealand are also, getting the Australian and New Zealand driving license is a very lengthy process. It involves learning how to, it involves learning driving a rule book. So there's a rule book that you have to do, then you have to do a theory test, then you have to do like a learner's license exam, then you have to do a restricted license exam, and then you get a full license. It can take good 6 to 12 months depending on your skills. So here is a tip number 2 for you. If you want to write this down, please make sure while you're in Pakistan you learn how to drive. I think it will be really helpful, and it will save a lot of time and money, because driving classes here are like $50-60 for 1 hour class. It's really very expensive. So if you can learn how to drive back home, I think it will be really helpful. Also, try and obtain a full license, like full overseas license from back home. If you do that, then the whole process becomes very easier. All you have to do is give one test and you can get the license of Australia straight away. So if you can please look into that while you're there, I think it will be really helpful for you. Okay, so car insurances are very important as well. So when you buy a car, I think it's important to have the car insurances. Okay, another tip I would like to give you: if you have your own car when you come here, please make sure you have insurance for the car, because it will be really helpful. and also make sure that you, when you buy a car, it will actually help you to increase your job prospects as well. So it's a good thing to, first of all, learn how to drive back home. Try to get the full license if you can from back home. Make sure it is English in English translation, just so that you can use it here straight away. Buying groceries is pretty straightforward as well. There are various stores like Coles and Woolworths which are available everywhere. Even Indian and Pakistani groceries are available everywhere, so that's pretty easy. Childcare facilities. So let's say if you are planning to move as a family, if you got kids, then as well there are the childcares are here very good. Like me and my wife work here full time, and when my son was little, we used to send our child to childcare. It was very good facilities and qualified teachers there. Other things for you to know, like there are lots of various banks. Obviously there are post office and world-class libraries over here. There are facilities like MoneyGram, which can be used for international money transactions. Food over here is very different varieties of different cuisines. Entertainment wise, there are a lot of restaurants, a lot of long drives, scenic rides, if you want to call it, very number of beaches, nightlife, and various places to visit as well. So overall, living in ANZ region is pretty good, with all the facilities that you would expect from a very well-established country. So yeah, if you can go to the next slide, please.
Guys, if I may come in very quickly, I think if we could start with the studying part first. That's what the students are waiting for most, and I think that's the comments that we are receiving. And we could probably come to the living part a little later. Does that sound right to you guys?
We just have one more slide on the living stuff, which is the current slide, and the next slide is all about studying.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll be very quick with this one, and then we'll talk about the study part as well. Yeah. Okay. So there might be instances when some of you might want to study or decide to study in the regional areas. So hence I'll put this slide together to explain you what is the difference between urban living and regional living. In a nutshell, most of the living facilities between urban and regional areas are similar. The key difference is the population, size of the town, public transport facilities, Jamaat Khana access, for example, like remote and regional areas may not have Jamaat Khanas. Job opportunities might differ as well. And overall cost of living might differ as well. Like urban cities might be a bit expensive to the regional, But for example, if you look at the pictures that we have on the slide, a picture on the right, the top photo is about the Melbourne, and the bottom photo is about the regional Victoria, right? So you can see that, regional Victoria is Geelong, yeah? So as you can see, Geelong is also very pretty, as you can see from the picture, so yeah, it's main difference is the size and population of it, So other regional areas where what we've seen students migrating to are also like Perth, Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast, Lake Macquarie, Newcastle, Wollongong, Adelaide, Hobart, Canberra, and there are some really good universities in those regional cities, towns as well. Yeah, so I just want to give you that picture because, and we'll touch on this in the later part of our session, that some of the visa conditions to fulfill that, some of them actually have to move to the regional towns. So we thought it would be helpful for you to know this. Yeah. Over to you, Nazim. Yeah.
Cool. So just a little bit about the Australian qualification framework. So Australia follows the Australian Qualification Framework, or AKEB'P. It's where all your certificates are regulated, and it's recognized by internationally as well. It's government authorized, and it consists of 10 levels. So level 7 is your bachelor's degree, which is generally 3 years. And then level 8 is your honors year or your graduate certificate or graduate diploma. Level 9 is your master's, your coursework, or your research by master's. and level 10 is your doctorate degree. So in Australia, they're pretty much divided into universities and vocational institutions. There are 42 universities, majority of which are public, so 37 public, 3 private, and 2 international private. Some of Australian universities are ranked amongst the top 100 globally. Universities generally offer undergraduate and postgraduate degrees, so postgraduate including your master's by research and master's by coursework, and your doctorates are your PhD degrees. The Australian university system is very similar to the British system. Vocational institutions, on the other hand, they're very much linked to your industry and sort of give you the practical skills to sort of go out into the workplace. They will give you your certificates 1 to 4, your diplomas, and your advanced diplomas. There are 2 intakes per year for Australia. That's generally February, March, and July and August. And the deadlines for February, March are October, November the year before, and April, May for July and August. I've just got some pictures up there of some of the inventions and initiatives that Australians have invented, including Wi-Fi, cochlear hearing implants, the black box recorder. So just to sort of give you that motivation that Australia is one of the leading fronts in terms of technology and developing, enhancing, improving quality of life. So the largest university in Australia is Monash University with about 75,000 students. It consists of 5 local campuses and 5 international campuses based in Melbourne. The second largest is RMIT, also based in Melbourne, and followed by the University of Sydney, which is based in Sydney. There are some of the universities are broken down into like certain groups. So the group of 8 is like your top ranked universities in Australia up on this slide. So NU, Australian National University, University of Adelaide, University of Melbourne, Monash University, University of Queensland, University of Sydney, University of Western Australia, and UNSW, University of New South Wales. There are other groups as well. So there's groups of technology, there's groups of innovative research, and there's groups of regional universities. So a little bit what Anish was telling you guys about that, you know, should you choose to go to live in regional parts of Australia, there are plenty of opportunities and plenty of great universities in that way as well. So this is just a bit of a map. This is a map of Australia and just shows, I guess, the spread of the cities and the spread of where the universities are located to some extent. And you'll see a majority of them are based in the larger cities, just to give you, I guess, a visual image as to where things are located. And as I said on the previous slide, that some of these universities are ranked in the top 100 globally. So in New Zealand, it's the qualification framework is called the New Zealand Qualification Framework. It's synonymous to the Australian Qualification Framework. It's also government authorized and nationally accredited and consists of 10 levels. So New Zealand consists of 8 universities which offer undergraduate and postgraduate degrees, and it has 18 ITPs or Institutes of Technology and Polytechniques, which are very similar to vocational institutes that are offered in Australia. So they provide you practical skills and hands-on experience, but they also offer undergraduate and postgraduate degrees. So intakes are also very similar to Australia, around February and July, and vocational institutes, the ITPs, they sort of range by college and the institution itself. So as you're preparing for your studies in Australia, we see that there are 3 steps. The first step is selecting an appropriate course to study and an institution or city. The second step, which is something that Anish has spoken a little bit about, is budgeting, and we'll dive into that into more detail in the next few slides as well, which is looking at the costs that are involved in studying and living in Australia and New Zealand. And the third and final step is applying for your course and your visa. So when you're selecting a course and an institution to study, I guess the question always comes at, how do we go about choosing the right institution for us? And this may come down to the location, the quality of the institution, the proximity to Jamaat Khana, the length of the course. Some courses have Some bachelor's degrees, maybe 3, some maybe 4 years, which are inclusive of like an honors year. You may be looking at, depending on financial constraints, you may have to factor that in terms of the cost of studying and living. Looking at scholarship and funding opportunities that may be available through that particular institution or externally. Seeing what available support is offered through that institution, and also maybe factoring into the skilled occupation list, which is something that Anish will talk about a little later on. So when should you decide what sort of degree, what sort of course, or what sort of institution? We would say explore your options as early as possible. Start shortlisting your courses and institutions during high school, during secondary school, if you're looking to do undergraduate degrees, and if you're looking to do postgraduate in Australia and New Zealand, then look to sort of note that down whilst you're studying your undergraduate degree. Try to attend education fairs and try and talk to career counsellors. So I noticed that there's some questions about cost of studying in the chat. So I'm hoping that this will answer some of those questions, but all these costs are in Australian dollars. So the first thing that most universities, and from a visa perspective, they'll sort of say that, you've got to make sure that you have enough money in your account to pay for 1 year course fee and 1 year of living expenses. So this is a guide based on 2019 data. If you're a family that's coming in, if you're a family that has children and are looking to enroll your children into school, so school can cost anywhere between $7,800 to $30,000 per year. If you're looking to undertake language classes, they're about $300 per week, but they do vary from course to course and the duration of the course. Vocational education and training can be anywhere from $4,000 to $22,000 a year. Your undergraduate bachelor's degree is anywhere between $20,000 to $45,000 per year. A postgraduate master's degree, $22,000 to $50,000, and a doctoral degree, $18,000 to $42,000 per year. Anish, over to you about the cost of living in Australia.
Sure. Thank you, Nazim. So below is a very generic information. Obviously, cost of living depends on your lifestyle. So cost can go down if you are sharing as well with the other members. But as a ballpark, and this data is from 2019, you can, like for 12 months of living cost, like as a student or guardians, you can live comfortably at around $21,000 Australian dollars. If you have partners coming with you as well, then you can add about just over $7,000 more. And if you have a child coming with you, then you can add just over $3,000, $4,000 per child. Note that the childcare and education cost is not included. So let's say if you are going to be studying as well, then that cost is not included here. As a rough guide for accommodation, you can assume for hostels and guest houses, you can assume 90 to 150 per week. Share rental 90 to 215 per week. On campus 110 to 280 per week, and so on and so forth. Other living expenses, groceries about $150 per week, gas, electricity $20 to $40 per week, phone and internet $15 to $40 per week, public transport $30 to $60 per week, car after purchase $150 to $260 per week, and entertainment depending on your lifestyle $50 to $150 per week. So this is just a rough guide. As I said, the cost of living very much depends on your lifestyle. But I just thought we'll put this in just for a rough guide.
So the cost of studying in New Zealand, I mean, these numbers are as of 2021. So again, if you're coming in with a family, it's a little bit cheaper. So primary in Australia is years 1 to 8, and secondary is years 9 to 13. So primary is about $11,000 in New Zealand dollars per year, and $13,000 for secondary. And private schools will vary depending, on the type, and sort of the will vary from school to school, and they're about $25,000 and onwards. Again, English language class will vary depending on the course and the duration. So looking at about $350 per week. If you're looking to do vocational education at an ITP. One-term certificate in computing is approximately $12,500, whereas a 2-year diploma in engineering is about $18,500 per year. An undergraduate bachelor's degree is $22,000 to $35,000 per year. A postgraduate master's degree is about $26,000 to $37,000 per year. And a doctorate degree, much cheaper to do in New Zealand than in Australia, is about $6,500 to $9,000 per year.
Yep, and in terms of the cost of living in New Zealand, and again, this is the estimated average range for Auckland. You can expect a furnished room around $130 to $220 per week, plus internet $30 to $40, food $70 to $100, transport, depending on what level of transport, up to $30 you can add per week. Phone $0 to $5 per week, and total $230 to $395 per week. Basic cost for family. I think there are the figures here as well for your reference. $160 to $260 for a furnished room, plus internet, plus food, plus transport, phone. Total, roughly speaking, $360 to $620 per week. Okay, let's talk about money management and other matters. So money management and finance management is going to be a very, very important thing when you're coming here. And some of you might be leaving your home for the very first time. So it is important that you prepare your budget and stick with your budget on a monthly, weekly basis. It is important that you have enough funds to support yourself, your university, your school, and your living expenses. There might be times when you don't have a job for a few weeks, few months, and you may not be able to work as much due to study commitments or situations like lockdown, for example. That's a classic example. So it is important that you have savings for the rainy days. Banks and financial institutes are there. There are many banks and financial institutes when you work here in Australia, you need to have a tax file number, and in New Zealand you need a Inland Revenue Department number. This is required for you to work. Income tax returns are payable every year. Build your credit. It is important that you ensure that you have your credit history clean and good, because if your credit history is somehow damaged because of missing out paying a particular bill, or then you can get some troubles down the track. So having a good credit history is very important. One more tip I would like to share with you is that ensure that you have enough funds available to support your study and living. At least from study wise, at least 1 year of study fees, and from living wise, at least 6 months of living expenses. And again, you don't have to have that money right there in your pocket, but make sure that you have provisions for it. If you need it, then you can tap onto it. Next slide, please. Okay, so now let's talk about finding a job and working in Australia and New Zealand. It is quite normal in Australian culture to do blue collar jobs, like even Australian kids, while they're growing up, they work at McDonald's. It's very normal, so it's nothing to be ashamed of that. And so don't feel like doing a blue collar job is going to make you look poor or disadvantaged. It is very, 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 very normal for students to do this type of jobs, and they do pay all right. Yeah, as of 1st July 2021, minimum national wage is about $20.33 per hour. So, and minimum wage for New Zealand is about $20 per hour as of 1st of April 2021. This might have gone up slightly because this data is from 2021. So to work in ANZ, you firstly need a work permit. As a student, you are allowed to work so that you can so as a student, you're allowed to work, so you can easily get work permit, whether it is in Australia or New Zealand. In Australia, you need to then apply for tax file number, and in New Zealand, you need to apply for Inland Revenue Department number. You need to provide this to your employer so that you can get paid, and then at the end of the year, you can use it as a for your tax return. Usually, due to low-income students, you will be able to get most of it as a tax return by the end of the financial year. But again, depending on how much you earn and which country you are in, might vary. How much tax return you can get back and how much tax you'll be paying. Different jobs, different types of jobs you can do, like part-time job, casual job, full-time job, depending on your visa permit. How do you find jobs? There are various ways you can find jobs. Online websites like seek.com.au, seek.co.nz, jobsearch.gov.au, LinkedIn, careers.go.nz. Also, there are advertisements in newspapers, recruitment agencies, walk-ins, word of mouth. There are various ways you can find a job. University job boards are also a good source of finding a job. Sometimes jobs are there on Facebook groups as well. Driving a taxi or Uber is also an option. Uber Eats was one of the very good source of income for a lot of international students during the time of pandemic. So that's why please make sure that you get your license. I can't harp on it any more than that. So make sure that you have your driving license. It always helps to find a job and also helps you to make more sustainable. Also, another tip that I would like to share with you is you can do a freelancing work as well on a websites like Airtasker and freelancing websites like freelancer.com.au. I know quite a few Ismaili students who do this, and they do really well. So, for example, let's say if you're an IT developer, you can find small projects there, and you can do it at your own time. You can also provide tuitions to small kids. You can, if you know a musical instrument, you can teach that online. You can provide cricket coaching if you're a cricket fanatic like me. So there's so many ways students are seen here, doing their different types of jobs. Yeah. From international support point of view, we have a high care/settlement team in social welfare who can also help and support you and provide you the tricks and tips on finding a job. So yeah, to assist you with this process, AKEB'P has also to assist with this process. AKEB'P has also got Career Horizons, who can offer the job ready service and one-on-one sessions aiming to help you refine your CVs and LinkedIn profiles, prepare for interviews, and leverage your network to find a suitable role. So yeah, feel free to reach out when you're ready, and when you're here, I guess obviously we are here to help you, but at least in giving you the tips and tricks on how to find the jobs. Yeah. And then obviously it all depends on your own caliber as well. So yeah, thanks, Nazim. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is a very important slide. Yeah, please use this information as guide only, as it says on the top, and obviously double check your visa conditions in official migration websites. But usually as a primary applicant, you're allowed to work maximum 20 hours per week during the semester, and usually allowed to work unlimited hours during the semester break. I think this was lifted up more than 20 hours during pandemic. I'm not exactly sure if this is still the case. Even if it is, I don't think it is going to be there for long. So I think this is roughly correct. So 20 hours per week and during the semester. And so usually I've seen students, what they do is they restrict themselves in terms of like 20 hours or 10 hours or 15 hours during the semester, because they have some study commitments as well. And then when there's a break, they go crazy and make up for the time. So that's one way of doing it. But let's say if you're coming as a secondary applicant, so let's say you are a spouse of or then you can work unlimited hours. So that's another way. I've seen quite a few families supporting each other out as well. Okay, next slide, please.
So I've seen some questions in the chat about scholarships. So I'll just, I guess, say that there are a limited number of scholarships that are available in Australia and New Zealand, and they are extremely competitive, specifically for undergraduate students and postgraduate coursework students. There's many opportunities for people who are looking to do a PhD in Australia and New Zealand. And, if you like, feel free to take a photo of this slide. I think one place that a lot of students do miss out on is actually checking the university that they're applying to. So for example, if you're applying to Sydney University or Monash University, you should definitely check out the scholarships that they have within or at that specific university. I think, unfortunately, those scholarships won't cover, 100% of everything that that they provide. I think I saw someone say that the scholarship was covering about 25% or 30%. How are you going to manage all the other finances? The best way to go about it is working part-time. That's the way in which you can sort of manage your finances, which is what Anish has sort of covered in the previous slides. I have never come across any scholarship in any country that will cover 100% of everything. So it's an unrealistic expectation to have something like that. On the topic of working part-time, we encourage you to look at internships as well whilst you're studying. This will give you industry experience, and you'll be able to develop your skills from a practical viewpoint, and also develop your network. And sort of put together some points on your CV as well, on your resume. International students are allowed to go about applying for internships, and there are some of the websites that you can sort of look at. Even though you're here as an international student, whether it be at Australia or New Zealand, you're also eligible through some universities to do exchange programs. So you can then potentially go to another university for a short stint for, say, a semester, or 6 months or so, and sort of study there. But again, this will come down to the university and your visa and whatnot. So just in terms of the tertiary institution admission requirements, I would say there's probably 3 high-level things that they all. 3 on this page, and I think another 2 more points on the next page. But the first is the English language requirements, which I think is your IELTS for people who are coming to Australia and New Zealand. That seems to be the most common test that people do. The other is that the fact that you must have private health insurance, and Anish will talk a little bit more about this in the slides to come. Those are some of the rough guidelines as to the cost if you're a single or couple or family. New Zealand provides health insurance through the tertiary institutions that you're looking to apply to. You need to show evidence that you have enough money to pay for yourself and your studies, which goes back to the point that I was making, that you need to show that you have funds for 1 year's worth of studying and living. You must show your academic requirements, which I'm assuming would be your GCE A-levels for Pakistan. And you'll need to, as part of your visa, have a genuine temporary entrant and provide a personal statement, why, how does Australia and New Zealand education benefit your career, how you see the future prospects in terms of your career path or the education pathway that you're taking. And for postgraduate study, there'll be some additional requirements as well. It could be a specific bachelor's degree. It could be you providing a personal statement, undertaking an interview, or sharing your CV, which will include professional experience in that space as well.
Thank you, Nazim. So now let's talk about health and well-being. Okay, so both public and private healthcare is quite excellent in Australia and New Zealand. Public care is funded through general taxation, and residents pay their share of medical contribution. Alternatively, private healthcare is also available, and in this sector is costly, but can provide a speedy treatment, especially for the non-emergency treatments. By law, all international students studying are required to have the appropriate and up-to-date medical insurance coverage as a condition of their student visa. So OSHC, Overseas Student Health Cover, is a type of health cover designed specifically for international students. OHSC, we call it OSH. OSH will help you to pay all kinds of medical treatments, from regular doctor consultation to the emergency service, and you are required and any emergency service that you require should you require it. So how to obtain OSH? You can either arrange to pay for your OSH via university or go directly through the provider website. Various health insurance providers are available, such as Bupa, Medibank, etc. Just one more tip I would like to give you. Some universities have agreements with the insurance providers. So I suggest you check this with your university first, but you're free to choose whichever insurers you like, and there is no restrictions to go through the university. So let's say if university is providing you the option which is expensive, you can always go to do your own research and get your own insurance outside as well. So OSH cover can cost you somewhere $400 to $600 per year for singles. And usually OSH doesn't cover extras covers such as dental, optical, physio, chiro, osteo, acupuncture, remedial massage, hearing aid, laser eye treatment, etc. You can choose OSH extra covers as well, but with an additional fees if this is important for you. Another tip I would like to give you, and this is very, very important. Actually, there are two tips. One is dental work is very expensive here. So if you got any broken tooth or, anything, please make sure you get that fixed back home. I've seen a lot of students going like, keep eating because they can't afford, because it can cost, like root canal treatment can cost around $1,500 to $3,000 to just do a root canal treatment. And that also without the crown. So it's very expensive. And I've seen students keep eating, painkillers because they can't afford it. And then they actually wait to go back to home and get that fixed. So if you got any such pre-existing treatment to be done, make sure that you get it done. Also, another tip I would like to give you is optical is very expensive as well here, relatively. So if you are wearing the glasses like me, make sure you have extra pair of glasses with you. And if you're wearing lenses, make sure you have lenses and enough stock of it so that you don't run out of it during your stay. Okay, so moving on from OSH, let's talk about Medicare and private health insurance covers, which is available to residents and citizens. So this probably won't apply to you, so I'll quickly skim through. So this is a public care. It's a relatively pretty good, compared to back home. Like I'm from India, but I can compare it from India. It's very, very good public care as well. And this is available for free for residents and permanent residents and citizens. Private health insurances are also available, and there are tax incentives for the residents and the citizens and all those visa people to have the health insurance as well. I think we talked enough about the health insurance, so I'm going to skip over that. Pharmacies are available all over Australia and New Zealand. Private and public hospitals are also available all over Australia and New Zealand. Over to you, Nazim.
There was a question about, I think, IELTS in the chat that I came across. And I think this does vary from university to university, and it also varies from course to course. So depending on the requirements, it's very hard to give a specific grade or mark to sort of answer that question. But that sort of comes to, I guess, the checking your eligibility process. So I've seen some questions about, what's the application process? So this is just a bit of an overview about this, whether it be vocational, undergraduate or postgraduate coursework. If you're doing postgraduate research, I'll go through that in the next slide. But the first step is, choosing an appropriate course, which I spoke about a little bit before, making sure that you meet the admission criteria and you're sort of aware of the application deadlines and understanding what are the sort of potential career paths once you've completed this particular course. So again, checking your eligibility, which is what I just spoke about, the IELTS, the English requirements, your academic requirements, and any other sort of tertiary sort of requirements that may be requested from that particular institution. Next step is to gather all your documents and sort of having them ready in terms of your visa requirements and whatnot, your academic transcripts. Then checking your finances. So knowing and understanding what's the cost of living in that particular area or city and any additional costs that sort of may incur along the way as well, having sort of a safety net. Then the next step is to submit your application. So you'd apply directly through the institution that you're looking to attend and just follow the instructions step by step. It's pretty much self-explanatory as you sort of walk your way through it. And then paying the processing fees and uploading all your documents. And then you'll be notified by the institution via email as to the outcome of the application. And then it's, of course, very important to accept the offer that's come through and then go about paying off the tuition fees and getting your health insurance cover, the OSHI cover that Anish was referring to, and then applying for a student visa. And then, of course, if you're coming in as a family, as Anish mentioned, having the additional spouse and children sort of visas that come through as well. So with a postgraduate application, where you're applying for a master's by research or a PhD, it's a similar sort of process in terms of eligibility. The additional 2 steps would be the research proposal. You generally have to provide a proposal on the project that you're looking to do, your aims, objectives, background information, maybe having an idea as to who your supervisors will be, and then explaining your ideas in a cohesive manner, and then looking at funding. So looking at what are the scholarships that are available, and then again, any additional costs that may come into play. And then, of course, going through the motions of submitting and gathering your documents and submitting everything, and then accepting your offer once the offer comes through, and applying for your student visa thereafter. Over to you, Anish.
Okay, so this is something that you may not need it right now, but something for your knowledge. And Australia and New Zealand is very good in analyzing what skills they need in the country at a specific point in time. This can be found on our website by simply doing a Google search of skills in demand in Australia for migration, or skills in demand in New Zealand for migration. So if your skills are in demand, it can benefit you when you're applying for residency. I just want to make sure that you're clear about this, that this list keeps changing frequently, unfortunately. So depending on the skills required by the country, this list keeps changing. So let's say, for example, today you might see skills which may be in demand today may not be in demand by the time you finish your course and apply for your residency. So just be careful and cautious of that and aware of that. So it is important that you think strategically and long term when you're selecting your course for studying. And here are also a couple of websites for your research. So before deciding the programs / qualification of study, it is very important to check whether your chosen qualifications falls into a skill occupation list for Australia and skill shortage list checker for New Zealand. And this is for long-term regional construction skills shortage, etc. So hopefully this will help you. and something to keep in mind that this list keeps changing. So yeah, just be aware of that. Thank you, Nazim.
Thanks, Anish. So there was I guess a service that we are offering as an ANZ Jamaat as part of Education Board, and I did see something about, you know, links or contacts as to how you can get in touch with us. So Career Horizons is a brand that's under as part of our Education Board, and we do have a service which is called Guidance and Mentoring, where we can try and connect you with Jamaati members who are in a field that you're already in, that you're looking to apply to sort of get into, and sort of get you in touch with them and share their experience with you to get a better understanding as to what it's like studying and living here, what the job market's here in that particular space. I think the main areas that a lot of our Jamaat in Australia and New Zealand are in are IT, accounting and finance, and nursing. I think we've seen an influx in engineering. They're probably like the 4 or 5 sort of main categories that a lot of our Jamaat is in. There are some other Jamaati members who are in sort of niche areas such as marketing or in other areas of healthcare. And I guess we can always try and find someone, if not within ANZ, maybe in another jurisdiction, to sort of get you a better understanding as to what that sort of career involves, but still just to give you that exposure in that sense. But so the email address is there on the bottom of the screen, so please feel free to reach out to us if you have any specific questions. I'll hand it over to Anish to introduce 2 of the students that we've had who have moved from Pakistan and are living currently in Australia.
Excellent, thank you. So we got 2 students with us today. We'll start with Jahan. So Jahan is from Pakistan, Karachi. He currently lives in Melbourne, and he studied bachelor's in computer science. So Yalim Jahan, and welcome.
Hello, Anish. Thanks a lot to all these speakers. You guys pretty much covered a lot of stuff today, and that's a really good platform that we have right now. So yeah, go ahead with the questions, and I'm more than happy to answer any of them today.
Thank you, Jahan. And first of all, I really want to thank you and Zunair for your time. So the reason for bringing Jahan and Zunair is just so that you can actually hear from the students who has been through this journey. You had enough of hearing from me and Nazim, but now let's really see the reality of the ground. Yeah. And as you know, our objective is not to sugarcoat anything or not to misguide anyone. It's our attempt is to make sure that you get the real information on the ground so that you can prepare yourself and make a right decision for yourself, right? So we prepared some questions for Jahan just to articulate his experience and share with you guys, and also with Junaid, so that you can hear a couple of examples. Yeah. So Jahan, what are the tips that you would like to give to our audience in preparing for studying and living in ANZ while they are actually there in Pakistan?
So, well, I would firstly suggest the enthusiasm, right? Because we have quite a bit of mindset when we're in Pakistan or India or anywhere else in the country. We think about coming to the Western country, thinking about making a lot of money, studying, and then arranging our fees, and then sending money home. Things are implausible to some context. Sending money home while studying, it's quite of outreach, I would suggest. However, it really depends on person to person. For me, working as a part-time student and then affording my university fees and then sending the money was a little bit implausible for what I think. Other than that, just not enthusiasm. I would suggest that having a right to get to do the mindset that, hey, I have to do it. I have to do it for the future. We already know ANZ, they have a really good quality of life, Maulana Haji Imam Farman. And then there are a lot of other things that we have to consider in the Western society which Pakistan, to be very honest, lacks. So having that right mindset is really important.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And what are some of the challenges that you would like to share with the group? So when you came as a student in Australia, what were some of the challenges? And also, how did you manage all this studies and work and finances and everything? How did you go about that?
So my first semester fees was paid by my parents. Like that's something that you would have to do while you're coming to Australia. You have to prepay the fees. You can't post-pay it. So when I came to Australia, I had to start looking for jobs. And obviously we are always in the comfort zone when we are in Pakistan, right? So we have to get out of that comfort zone. Once I was in Australia, I had to find my jobs. I had a 20-hour cap limit. So I would do 20 hours a week while I'm studying because I had to get the good grades. And really need to get good grades because you can always, if you have good grades, you can always apply for excellence scholarship, which I personally did. And then over the holidays, you can work unlimited hours. That's the legal law at the moment. So I would go up to 120 hours a week when I'm on my holidays, just to cover my expenses, my fees. My social life was ridiculous in the first few years. For the first 1 and 2 years, it was really bad. So just for the sake of managing your life and getting used to it, it was really hard for me. The culture shock. I was personally I never went to any foreign country before. So coming here, it was a big culture shock and everything, getting used to the people, homesickness, everything was hard. But once you're into doing it, I'm pretty sure you'll be able to do it. It is possible, it's not impossible, but it's still enthusiasm and improving, just looking forward to improving your quality of life at the end of the day.
Excellent. And I guess if I can relate to your first question's response, it's all about attitude, right? If you have came with the right mindset and right attitude, then it will get you going, right?
Yes.
So that's a really good answer. Also, the last question for you, Jahan. What sacrifices have you given? I know we've spoken earlier, and I was very impressed with some of the sacrifices that you've given, because I know you want to be a permanent resident in the country. So do you want to share something about that?
Yeah, sure. So I made my friends in Melbourne. I would go to Khidmat. I would do a lot of stuff. At the moment, I'm a youth coordinator in Melbourne. And looking forward in looking and working in AKEB'P at the moment as well for ANC. The things that I would have done. So I recently shifted to regional Victoria a couple of months ago at the start of this year, just to get my citizenship sorted out, my PR, working for my PR while I'm advancing my studies as well. So not a lot of people know about this, but I'm started to do my second degree as a nursing as well, while I'm doing my computer science degree while working for it as well. So this is all the procedures that I'm going through in order to get my citizenship sorted out here. So my sister is still living in the city, which is about 2.5 hours away from me, and I'm staying in a regional Victoria where I have to go to the university, which is again in a regional area. I still have to come to Friday Jamaat Khanas for my duties, and I'm still trying to manage all these things up together. While we speak, at this moment, I'm in Warrnambool, which is about 5 hours away from Melbourne. And I'm here for my regional Victoria placement in order to do what I have to do. Well, at the end of the day, you got to do what you got to have to do. So just saying that I'm down here for about 6 years now. And just having that attitude to still looking forward, still thriving to get what you want. I feel like that's something that's really important while coming here.
Excellent. Very good response, Jahan. And I would really like to appreciate all the comments that you have shared with us. And you're absolutely correct. It all starts with the attitude and the hard work to achieve something, right? So thank you, Jahan. Really appreciate your time.
Anish,
Yes, Wafa?
may I ask a question?
Sorry?
May I ask Jahan a question, please?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, go for it.
So Jahan, why did you choose computer studies degree and why did you choose Australia for that matter of fact?
So I always had that because I did my A levels and O levels from Pakistan. I always had that dream to go outside and experience this as well while studying it. And the degree that I came into Victoria University, which is not that, so its ranking is okay, but it's not really that good for information technology or IT in general. So I did my first year, had good grades, and then I transferred to one of the best universities in Australia, which is Swinburne University, and it's still known for its computer degree. So knowing the fact that its QS ranking outweighs all the universities in Pakistan at this specific point, with one of the best leading teachers we can ask for, and best leading tools and and the things that you can use to accomplish your goals towards the computer science degree, while me working, because if you are in a good university, you get chance to work with good companies. I worked for 6 months with Spotify as my internship, and I worked for about 8 months with Wickreuts, working in the artificial intelligence department. And these kind of two big companies have given me a lot of exposure to work in the computer field, just in general. So having that exposure to work, to have in a good university, and then having to work with one of the best companies in the world, I feel like you have to do.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Jahan. Thank you. Anish, over to you.
Thank you, Wafa. And thank you, Zahan, once again. Okay, so now we'll move on to Junaid. Thank you, Junaid, for joining us. Really appreciate your time as well. So Junaid is also from Karachi, Pakistan. He currently lives in Sydney, and he studied Bachelor's of Business, Management and Finance. And yeah, so Junaid, I think you came in 2019, right, Junaid?
Yep, I came in March 2019.
2019, yeah, that's right. So do you want to briefly explain, give us your background, that, like, you know, when you came, and I think it's been 5-6 years now, right? So just to give a bit of background about yourself first.
Okay, so when basically I came from Karachi, Pakistan, I completed my intermediate from AKEB'P board, and then I always wanted to get my higher education from another country. At that time, Australia was one of the good options for me. So I just decided to come to Australia. I was looking for options, either Melbourne, Sydney, but Sydney, I was like, I got an admission in a college. It was an institute, wasn't a big fancy university, but then you got to do what you're going to do. So then I came in March 2019. I started my bachelor's. Things were pretty bad at that time because I was jobless for first 3 months. No job, no accommodation. So before coming here, I talked to some people that I'm coming to Sydney, I need accommodation. But when I showed up, there were people who were like, oh, we got accommodation, but we gave it to someone else because you were a week late. So this is one of the challenges you face. So I would suggest whenever you come from anywhere, just sort out your accommodation first. But then people here were nice as well. They kept me at their place. I finally found a home after 2 weeks. But then until then, people were very helpful. But as I said, that you really need to sort out your accommodation. For jobs, for the starters, I was jobless for 3 months, but then someone suggested just get a car. Yep.
I'm going to ask you some of the questions. So I think if you can cover it during that period, is that okay?
Yeah,
so
sure.
Briefly speaking, you came 5-6 years ago, and you've been through the whole journey, right? Like you've been through your student life, and now you're doing your professional life as well. And so yeah, I think that's a good background for our audience. Yeah. So if you also want to share some of the tips to our audience in terms of preparing themselves for studying and living in Australia or New Zealand, while they're actually there in Pakistan, what would be your tips to the group?
So basically, whoever comes from Pakistan, I give them 3 to 4 things. Just get your driver's license, just get your IELTS, just get the attitude of saying please, thank you, and you'll be good for Australia. Plus points if you can just get something for if you know any skills. So in Pakistan, we consider that learning something about being a plumber or a carpenter is a niche market. But if you want to come here, they you get paid a lot better than a proper office person if you know the skills. So if you know how to repair a mobile, you get paid more than whoever is working in an accounting firm. So that's what Australia is. For Australia, you need to have skills. Australia values a lot for trade workers. So if you know trade, if you know something which is good for you, you can easily earn money. You can do whatever you want to do.
That's a really good tip, Junaid. And back home in India and Pakistan, we don't value those skills, but over here, it's very much valued and it's a very high income as well. So that's a good tip. So when you were a student, how did you go about balancing your work and studies and settling and then some of the challenges that you face? So I think you shared a couple of challenges already. So yeah, if you want to cover those, that would be really helpful.
Yep. So basically, you have to do the work-life balance. Because I was studying as well as I was just allowed to do 20 hours a week, because that's what a student gets. So on tax, you have to do 20 hours, but if you want to do more, if you want to get your fees done, you have to work under the table. But then it's not that you have to do it every time, but it's not recommended that you do it. But if you want to do your fees, if you want to earn more, you have to do it. Secondly,
yeah,
there were
so Junaid, I guess yeah, so it's more about making sure that we stick with the, like, I guess, the legalities of the land.
Yeah.
So obviously we need to make sure of that. Yeah. So can I keep going? Yeah.
So okay, so 20 hours is the legal limit you can work. So when you come to Australia, make sure that you have your fees for your next semester. You can't, it's a very unrealistic thing that you plan that if you will come, you will earn a lot of money in first 4 months, that you will be able to pay your fees for the next semester. If you don't have the fees for the next semester already, I think it's not the right time for you to make a decision. That's what I always suggest to everyone, because for the first 2 months, you won't be able to get a proper job. You won't be able to get a proper accommodation. You will have a lot of expenses for start. If you don't get a job, you have to buy a car. If you buy a car, all your money goes there. So that's why if you don't have the money for your next semester fees, please rethink about your decision when you're coming to Australia.
Yeah. So it's more about planning your finances and making sure that you have those money for your rainy days. Yeah. So I think that's a good tip. And yeah. Okay. And are you're also, Junaid, working towards your permanent residency at the moment? Is that correct?
Yep. So I'm on a full-time work visa, but it's until 2024. So right now I'm also working. I haven't moved to any regional areas yet, but I'm planning to move to regional areas just to secure my PR, because right now in Sydney and Melbourne, it's near to impossible to get PR in the fields which I have studied. So that's why if you plan accordingly, if you plan what's the need of Australia, then you can get your PR easily.
So you have to, at the time of the PR application, you need to make sure that you're aware which fields are in demand, which fields are making points, and then depending on a situation.
Everything is available on the websites, the SOL list for New South Wales, for Melbourne as well. Everything is available there. So just see which fields are in most demand, and then if you study that, you can get your PR easily. If you study something else, you will get your PR, but then there are challenges as well. You need to move to regional areas. You need to secure more points. Then you can get your PR.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Junaid and Zahan. Is there anything else you guys want to add you might have missed before we move on to the agenda?
No, that's pretty much it. That's how.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Thank you, Junaid. And Zahan, anything from you?
No.
You happy? Yeah.
Yep.
Excellent. Thank you, guys. Feel free to stick around if you like, because we're going to open up for Q&A. And so, yeah, I guess over to you, Wafa.
Thank you, Anish. And please post your questions on the chat box. So most many of our participants, they want to know about studying in medicine, surgery, maybe the PSCN, the nursing. How should they go about it?
So I think the process is the same, like where we sort of went through the application process. It's choosing the course, looking at which universities offer medicine or nursing or whichever degrees they're sort of interested in, and then going through the motions of reading the information that's there on their specific website, because every university will be different. Every sort of they'll have their own requirements. From a high level, I mean, these are the requirements that we sort of discussed about the IELTS, the your academic transcript, your tertiary qualifications, and sort of any, I guess, the fees, making sure that you have enough money for the first year of living and studying there, which I think, the Zunair and Jahan also spoke about as well. So those sort of requirements are as a minimum. For medicine, there'll be other specific requirements. I think there'll be an entrance exam, there'll be interviews as well. Yeah, and it sort of varies from university to university.
Right, lovely. So there is one very specific question from Rahim Kanani, and he says that he got an admission in Griffith University with 25% scholarship. He's doing his master's, he's done his IELTS, he's done his bachelor's in animation, and he has enough money to support himself. He wants to know what else is he missing? What else does he need to do?
So if he's got his approval offer, he needs to accept the approval offer and then apply for the visa. Once that comes through, it's a matter of then making sure, like he said, that he's got his finances all in check. It's then a matter of making the trip down here, I would say. Anish, do you have any other comments in terms of anything else that he should be aware of in terms of like living, besides everything that you've already discussed? Anish?
I think there's some problem. Anish, can you hear us? All right, so we'll move on
Hi,
to this.
I'm so sorry. I can hear you. Can you repeat the question?
So this Rahim, he has got an admission in the university. He now has his IELTS score, which is 6.5. He's done his bachelor's in animation, and he has enough money to support himself. So Nazim said that all he has to do is to apply for the visa now. What else should he keep in mind before coming to Australia?
Yeah, so I guess some of the, so is Rahim like a single person or with a family?
Which he did not mention. How about you answer for both cases?
Yeah, so I guess if he's a single person, then as I mentioned, having a driving license is going to be important. Making sure that he's got his accommodation sorted. Make sure that he has try and make a contact over here with whoever. If he knows somebody here, that's great. If not, then happy to as a social welfare team and AKEB'P team, we both can also help him as well. So yeah, I guess those are some basic things that he can do. Yeah, and if he's with the family, then obviously if he's got any kids, then obviously we need to make sure he sorts out his childcare. If he's got a partner, so it depends on the personal situation. I'll be honest, I can go on forever, but I feel like it will be good to know a little bit about Rahim, and then we can help him.
So Rahim mentioned that he's single and he cannot apply for his visa. He needs COE.
COE. Is that an English text? Is it? No. What is COE? Or is it a letter?
COE is basically a document from the university which you get that your admission has been confirmed, and then you can actually apply for a visa on that basis. So that's the COE which the university provides where you got the admission.
Okay, so that means he has to apply for the course, and Nazim will be the best person to talk about that. But
it sounds like he's already applied for the course and he's got he's got the approval already. So I think he needs to accept the approval so that he can then receive the COE. Is that correct, Zunair? Is that what the process is?
Yep. So first, when you get your offer letter from any university, you need to show them the funds you have. You need to provide your case. So everything which you provide to the visa officer, before the visa officer, you need to provide it to the university, and then they issue a COE, which is the conditional offer letter that if you get the visa, then we'll be giving you the admission 100%. So
Yeah.
that's a conditional offer that you need from the university.
Yeah. So it seems like he's already got the offer letter. See, I think we're going down into too much detail here. And again, as we mentioned at the very start, we are not a migration agent, so this session is more about generic information. Happy to help Rahim if he wants to reach out to Nazim or I offline, because it does depend a lot on individual circumstances, right? So will that be okay, Nazim? Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good. I
Makes
think if he
sense.
reaches out to us on that email address, I think that'll be make it easier for us.
Yeah.
Right. So Rahim, please reach out to us on this email address. The next question is related to the first one about the nursing field. As an international nurse, and she wants to move to Australia with her family. So how should she go about it? She wants to know about job opportunities and the way she would settle in with her family and kids.
Okay, so maybe I'll start from the point of view of, like, I'm assuming that she's already got the admission and everything, and she wants to move here. Is that what she's saying?
She did not mention, but she says that she's an international nurse, which means she's already a nurse, and now she wants to move into Australia.
Okay.
I have a bit of knowledge about that as well, if I can pitch in.
Yeah, sure. I think
Please go
Anish
ahead.
looks like.
Yeah, okay. So first of all, you have a government body that you have to get your license for. That's called AHPRA, AHPRA. So once you get that license sorted out, you can legally work in Australia being an enrolled or the registered nurse. What's that again? Hello?
I think Jahan, please continue. I think Anish has lost his internet connection.
Yeah, no, that's okay. So being registered to the AHPRA ensures you that you can work in Australia as a nurse. However, people try to give another route. Now, I don't know if you have to come on the working visa, but usually the student visas are much more easier to get, and you can go working through being a nurse as well as doing your further studies, which a lot of people would choose to do in this scenario.
Yeah. So sorry, I just got disconnected for some reason. I'm back now. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So
Thank you, Jahan. Yes, Anish.
yeah, so I was just saying that assuming that she's already got the admission here and all, so the few factors that she can do. One is she needs to make sure that her degrees are from Pakistan. Make sure she brings it with her. Make sure that she brings transcripts as well, because and then she can apply for getting her nursing registered over here. I think there is and again, email us on this careerhorizon@anjni.org. We can guide her, because we've got so many nurses who has actually done that process here, and we can certainly help out in that instance. In terms of settling in ANZ, I think our whole presentation hopefully helps her in terms of what to do. But again, because she's got a kids and family that she's coming with, hopefully her partner, if the partner is coming as well, then they can work. He can work full time. So that's great news. If he's professional, then he will be eligible to do a full time professional job as well, which is great. If she's got a kids, then depending on what's the age, register. She needs to get them enrolled into the primary or secondary schools, and I believe because she's not a permanent resident, she'll have to factor in some additional cost in terms of the fees. I don't know exactly on top of my head, but again, Nazim is the best person. If we can reach out to him offline, he can find out all those details. And again, we are going into too much individual circumstances here, which I really don't want to go into, because we are recording this session as well, and I don't want to misguide anyone, or without having enough information. So I would suggest for individual queries, reach out to us separately with their background. That will help us to help them. Yeah.
Thank you, Anish. And since we are almost on time, I would like to ask one question. How the visa requirements that you mentioned, the immigration policies, why do international students find it difficult, and what should they do about it? And why is it difficult as compared to other countries, and how should they do the whole process?
See, if you compare it with the other countries, to like, for example, UK in particular, then UK and Australia, I mean, it's very contextual. How difficult is UK to become a resident over there, right? It may not be as difficult, I guess, for Canada, for example, but US as well is, I think, difficult enough to become a resident, right? So when I guess 10 years ago, when students came to Australia, started to come to Australia, it was very easy. Like, for example, if I share my story, I came as an international student in 2002. I only studied for 1 year and I got my permanent residency straight away after that. And I know Zaha might be rolling his eyes because he's still struggling after 5 years, right? So, but the point I'm trying to make is it all depends on what country's settlement policy is, and how much they want to grow and how much they can grow. Because it's easy to just open up the gates and everybody can flood in. But have a think of it this way. If there are so many people floods in, what are they going to do? There's no jobs, for example. If there are no skills required, if there are no, so it actually becomes very difficult to settle those members. So what Australia and New Zealand is doing, they're very smart in terms of their immigration policy. They are making sure that the people who are living in the country don't get penalized, or don't get this. They also don't want to have too much of unemployment rate as well, right? Because if you look at the statistics at the moment, Australia is sitting on like 4% unemployment rate, which is absolutely fantastic, right? It's a very, very low, like 4 or 5%. Don't quote me on the number, but it's very, very low, right? So the point I'm trying to make is they are very smart in terms of injecting the resources that they actually need, and being very brutal in saying, no, we don't want this skill. It might be the best skill in the world, but sorry, we got enough of it, So for example, when I came, for example, I am an IT professional. They were in the need of a lot of IT professionals. So it was easy for us to migrate at that time. But then accountants become a scarcity. So they open up the floodgates for accountants. Then they open up the floodgates for medical professionals. Then they open up the floodgates for specific IT skills like networking, cybersecurity. So that's what the current market is, for example. So I feel like, yes, it might sound difficult sitting in the home country. It might sound like it's very difficult, but if you think of it from the holistic point of view, it's actually a smart move for the country like Australia and New Zealand to make sure that they limit the injection of resources. Because, for example, Sydney and Melbourne are now becoming very, very saturated. So many students have already came here. They are not able to cope up with the infrastructure, like public transport becomes very busy, roads become very busy. So the whole lifestyle becomes very difficult. So they're very, very careful and very, very mindful of injecting the right number of people in each cities. Now they're trying to develop the regional areas. So they will change the migration policy in such a way that they are now developing more regional areas. So cities like Geelong, Warrnambool, all those areas are now also coming up. So it all depends on the country policy. And again, I'm not the expert in it, but I'm just sharing my views because I've seen last 20 years of cycle. So yeah, other countries, it might sound easy, but then is the lifestyle as good as Australia and New Zealand? I would question that, right? So it all depends on what you want and what you get. Yeah. So just have a think of it from that point of view as well. Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you, Anish. To summarize for our participants. So please write to us for your specific queries. Nazim, any last word for our participants?
Look, I would say, if you get the opportunity to reach out to us, please do reach out to us so that we can try and answer your questions. I think a lot of the things that I'm seeing in the chat, they're very specific for individual needs, and it's very hard to answer them during a generic webinar without going into so much detail. So my advice or sort of last words would be to, feel free to reach out to us. We'll try our best to answer your queries. If we can't answer them, we'll try and find the right people to then provide you advice or guidance on them, or we'll be upfront and honest saying that we don't have the answer. Try these links or try these particular services to then hopefully get you the required or the information that you're after.
Lovely. So everybody out there who is planning, who are exploring, for your specific queries, you can write to AKEB'P ANZ. You can see it on your screen. You can write to AKEB'P Pakistan. We can guide you from there. Please write to us. Please reach out to us. The recording of this session will be there on our YouTube channel and our Career Substack channel. Please, you can go watch it later. I would like to especially thank Nazim and Zunair to share their struggles, their experiences, and to be here with us. Nazim and Anish, thank you so much for taking 2 hours of your busy schedule and connect with us and answering the queries and giving us, in a nutshell, how does it look like to live and study in Australia and New Zealand. So thank you everybody for attending our session. I hope we have given you ample amount of information to decide for your career what is best for you. Thank you. Take care. Allah Hafiz. Yali Madad. We'll see each other again.
Thank you, everyone. Yalla Madad.
All of that.